Hi, welcome to this very short video all about the Alpha program, what it does and how it can help you. So in this short video, I'm going to cover, the question is, are you self-sabotaging? Are you getting in your own way? And this will include things like imposter syndrome, too much self-doubt, all sorts of different things that basically you know that you could be doing more, but you won't let yourself. So is that you, is the first thing. Why you do it, and then how to fix it, obviously. Because 40% of people chronically self-sabotage. And this damages their careers, their businesses, their health, relationships. It gets in the way of all sorts of different things. This is our speciality here at Certain Change. My name's Stephen Bates. I've been doing this for over 20 years. It's my company. And this is our speciality, helping people, talented people, often have great results, or they know they can do far more, but for some reason they just don't let themselves. So this is what we specialize in, and this is what the Alpha program helps people with. So everyone has doubts, fears, and procrastinates from time to time. And actually this is normal. It's okay. It's about being human. Everybody does it. The interesting thing is that self-doubt, fear, and procrastination, the things that people try and avoid and they don't like, is actually very, very helpful if used in the right time and in the right way. So when we are working with people, we explain the differences between when procrastination and self-doubt, and it seems counterintuitive that these things were useful, but actually they're incredibly useful to help you make good decisions. So we explain when and where self-doubt is going to be useful. But at the wrong time and in the wrong way, and when it's done excessively, that is when things really become a problem. So 40% of people do this. They've accidentally learned to do this. So we need to look at, are you in that 40%? Because I promise you I was. This is why I have this fascination for it. And my first career, I stumbled into this problem and I was really confused by it. So this is what the last 20 plus years of my life's work has been about. Why do we do this? Why does it happen? And how do we get out of this as fast as possible? So these are the big questions we need to answer. First of all, are you in that 40%? Do you chronically get in your own way? Self-doubt, excessive fear of failure, excessive fear of criticism. You might call it imposter syndrome, or perhaps you don't like selling, or you don't like promoting yourself, or it could be anything. So I want you to just hang on for a second while I explain why this happens. And then when you can understand it, then you can realize, hey, okay, there's a process why it happens, an accidental process. So therefore, actually, it can be fixed. So let's start with explaining why it happens. I want you to think of a time when you were perhaps moving house or wanted to buy a new car, or perhaps if you became pregnant, something which is a bit unusual, because it's easier to work on something when it's a bit unusual, because we don't necessarily move house all of the time or buy a new car all of the time. Now, what tends to happen is when we have something like this going on in our life, you suddenly see all examples of what you're thinking about all around you. So if you're thinking about getting a new car and you're not sure, shall I get this model or that model? What you suddenly see is lots of those models around you. Oh, there's another one. There's another one. You drive past them, you see them parked. Or if you were pregnant, or your spouse was pregnant, all of a sudden you started paying attention to things to do with babies. You see pregnant ladies around, you see buggies, all of a sudden you're fascinated by something before that you weren't paying attention to. If you were thinking of buying a new house or getting a new place to live, if suddenly you were interested and saw for sale signs or to let signs around, and then the interesting thing happens is you keep noticing them until your brain is satisfied, can make a decision. That's why we do this. We start to hone in all the things that we think are important. So this is your unconscious brain or your unconscious mind looking for the things that are important to you. So you start seeing them everywhere, so you can solve a problem, achieve a goal, or just deal with whatever is going on inside your head that's important to you. So if you were needing to have petrol or gas in your car, all of a sudden a petrol station or gas station is now really important to you. So you start searching, you start looking. So this is very normal behavior, and it's very, very helpful behavior. And you keep seeing these things until they're no longer important to you. So you filled up the car with petrol or gas, depending if you're in which part of the side of the pond you're on, and then you stop thinking about it. Automatically, it becomes unimportant until your car needs more fuel. So this happens in all sorts of areas. But what we don't notice is all the things that are not important to us. You see them, but you don't really pay attention to them because you don't really care. How many trees do you drive past? How many advertising slogans and pictures do you drive past? How many people do you drive past when you're just driving around? And you see them, but they're not really important. This is a very, very important part of how we think. This is how our brain stays in control. So there's millions of bits of information flying around all over the place, which we can't consciously deal with. So we do this all the time, but it sometimes accidentally works against us. It's a very useful process, but this is the same process that causes self-sabotage. So if you keep self-sabotaging, you're not going crazy. It's a process that is accidentally working against us. So this is an avatar that one of my team put together, and I do not wear trousers that short. So this is the real me, we call it. And the real me is to help me, my brain, me being me, is trying to help me basically deal with the threats, the problems, and the goals I have in life. And right at the very bottom, my brain says, what's going to threaten me? What's the problem? What could go wrong? And it's looking for danger, extreme danger. But that's about 10% or even less than 10% of our thinking. And we might turn it on when we're possibly crossing a busy road or we're driving and someone looks like someone might hit us, and our brain just goes, and this is the fight and flight thing people talk about. Luckily in the Western world, it doesn't happen that much, but our brain will be on the lookout for things that threaten us. But just a small amount of our thinking. It doesn't need to do it very often because we don't tend to live in a very dangerous world nowadays because of civilization. It does happen though. Most of our thinking, 70% of our thinking, is about solving problems. Now, it may not seem much fun, but if you think about everyday things in life, well, I just got to deal with that, we've got to solve that, we've got to put the washing out, we've all sorts of little problems. Sometimes they are serious problems, sometimes they're a little bit annoying problems, but most of our thinking is around solving problems. So we're very, very heavily biased to threats and problems. That's how we stayed alive as a species. You've got to stay alive first and to be safe and to solve problems, so then you can go and do some good stuff. You can then go and play with some goals, go and enjoy things. This is what human beings do really well, is they solve problems, and if those problems are solved nicely, we can then have a look at some goals. So it will look for these problems in a very nice balanced way. The real you will look for threats. Oh, there's no threats. What are the problems? Oh, let's go and do some fun stuff. And it will be pretty balanced. Most of the time, we're just solving problems in life. And then go, oh, let's go and do some fun stuff. The real you can do this very happily and bounce between all these different parts, these three different parts, very comfortably. And when we've got a nice balance with our problems and doing fun and exciting stuff, we tend to be quite happy and content. We're okay. Life's all right. But the process can go accidentally wrong, which causes chronic self-sabotage. Now, most of my clients, when they need the alpha program, it feels like there's two people inside their head. So in this case, the real me and then the scared me. So most of our chronic sabotage comes from being too scared. We're using fear too much. And what happens is another part of the brain has a process that becomes obsessionally focused on threats. So it's looking for things that are dangerous. And we're not talking about things with big teeth, and generally, because we don't have those in modern life for most of us. But what we're talking about is what will happen if I fail? What happens if I get criticized? What happens if I lose something? So we feel excessively sad if we lose a relationship, if we make the wrong decision, we say the wrong thing. perhaps we don't feel we're good enough. So you'll have possibly an angry you, a doubtful you, a not good enough you, a don't fail you, a don't get criticized at any cost, don't promote yourself. Though what your brain is saying is, I don't like this. I think it's dangerous. But it's excessively looking at the danger. It becomes exaggerated in its trying to spot threats, because if it can spot the threat and you can stop it from happening, then everything's going to be great. But what happens is it protecting you too much, and your imagination will, what happens if I go to that interview and then I don't get it? How bad will I feel? Or what will people say if I push myself forward to do that and then I'm not very good? What will people say about me? So fear of loss of money, fear of loss of self-worth, getting criticized by other people, not being good enough to what I think I should be. And if you are overly focused just on that bottom threats, then it stops you going after your goals and dealing with other important problems. So what happens is we become threat obsessed. This part of the brain, and I've never worked with anybody that wasn't just excessively threat obsessed. And with threats comes fear. Loads and loads of fear. So people live in fear. Fear of making the mistake, fear of doing things wrong, fear of judgment, fear of criticism, fear of loss, whatever it happens to be. Everyone's different, but the process is exactly the same. And the strange thing is, when people think they should have goals, or they want to move forward and achieve things in life, that's the real you thinking. Saying, come on, I can do this. I'm capable of doing this. I'm smart enough to do this. To that other part of the thinking, that sabotage thinking, goals are threats. Because doing something proactively, going for your dreams, going for that next job, asking that person out, is a threat to this other part of your thinking. So that's why it feels like it's an argument. So what's happening is, and this is the very important part, your sabotage thinking is trying to help you. That's why it doesn't stop. That's why we call it a loop, a sabotage loop, because it wants to help you, protect you from these threats that it's imagining. It's imagining these terrible consequences, and it says, I'm going to protect you. So we do some strange behaviors. We hold ourselves back. We sometimes, people drink or eat too much to try and make themselves feel better because of this. All sorts of destructive things we do. But what happens is we keep doing it because it thinks it's helping, because it doesn't want to hurt you. It can damage your life a lot, and your business and your careers and all sorts of things a lot, but it's trying to help you. That's why it doesn't want to stop. And the other problem is the real you does not understand what the sabotage thinking is trying to do for you. So you end up with an argument. Most people think that it feels like a conflict. I want to move forward. I can do this. I am smart enough. It's worth the risk. No, you can't. You can't. It's too dangerous. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not. And it's an argument that people often have for years and years and years. And often it starts when we were kids. So the Alpha program deals with fears, self-doubt, lack of confidence, imposter syndrome, self-worth, self-sabotage, all these different things. But what it is an excessive amount of fear, saying, well, if I don't believe I'm good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not capable enough. Well, if I believe that about myself, then I won't take the risk of doing anything, so I'll stay safe and everything will be okay. So it's just basically an overprotective mechanism that has just taken over, and you're arguing with yourself. If you recognize you're arguing with yourself, that's the thing you need to fix. You need to learn how to turn this off. And when you do, people believe in their true value. They will pitch themselves, say, at the right price or go for the right job. They will promote themselves confidently because they are capable. They have skills and talents. And they work in the best niche or the best job, or they'll work with the right clients because they won't hold back and say, I'm not good enough to do that. I'm not good enough to tell people how good I am. I'm not good enough to work with that level of person or charge that amount of money. And I've worked with so many people who, once they just turn this off, and this is what we do in the Alpha program, The real them just comes forward and they put their prices up. They tell their clients this is the price, and they get the price because their client knows this person's worth it. But if you're going now, well, I'm not really sure I am, that's the sabotage thinking kicking in very quickly. So it's a revelation to people when they turn this off, that the real them just comes out. It means you're not broken. The real you is there saying, I'm capable of more. I want to get on with it, but this sabotage thinking is just putting the brake on. We just make sure you stop putting the brake on in the wrong time in the wrong place. And that takes about 4 weeks. It's very predictable 4 weeks. And the results start to flow very, very quickly because you are already here with your skills and your knowledge and your abilities. And the amount of people I talk to who are, they're told, you're good at what you do. I love what you do. And they go, oh no, I'm not any good. I'm not, and they won't let themselves believe what other people are telling them. Satisfied clients, people, they're employed in a company at a senior level, even people at senior level. I work with people at C-suite and CEOs and founders. It doesn't matter. The same problem happens. But even when you're given the evidence of your abilities and your skills, this part still won't want to believe it. So you end up living in stress you don't need to live in. You end up living in a situation where you are arguing with yourself, usually very fearful about what could happen. You're wanting to move forward, but then disappointed that you don't. So it's a horrible place to live, and it's unnecessary. And the Alpha program, predictably 4 weeks to turn it off. And we'll guarantee you'll find out the reason why you're doing it in just the first session in under 2 hours. Guarantee that you'll know why you're doing it. Because the real you doesn't really have a clue what this is doing. It doesn't understand why it's doing it. But if you're sabotaging yourself, the reason will be in there, has to be in there, and we can find it in 2 hours. So if you're frustrated and fed up with yourself enough to say, oh, I'm fed up with holding back. I can do more. I know I'm capable of more. I want to do more. And I'm fed up with not believing in myself or being scared and fearful, then just get in touch. Use this link. There's probably a link around it. You can click book in, ask. Because we like helping people who know they're capable of more. They just don't let themselves. It's the first stage, and actually it's the easiest thing to do. Surprisingly easy. Even if you've had it for 10 or 20 years, it doesn't matter how long. It doesn't matter if you don't know where it comes from. You think so it's from a whole place in your childhood, and you had a terrible childhood, and you think it's going to take years of therapy. It doesn't. It's just, why are you choosing to sabotage yourself? And as soon as you know, your brain, the whole of you knows for the first time, the arguments stop, take your foot off the brake, and you go. And it's amazing what people do. So if this interests you, if you think, I've got to do it, my advice is you've got to be frustrated and a little bit annoyed with yourself enough to book in the call. Because if you say, I'm going to do this, this is a goal, this is you changing, you sabotage thinking and probably go, I'm not going to let you do this. And my biggest frustration is knowing there's people I can help very easily, but they won't let themselves start the process. Once they've started, they're always amazed how easy it is. But the hardest thing is your sabotage thinking will stop you from just having a chat with me. So I hope this has been useful to you. Thank you for your time. This is the Alpha program. It works. Been doing it for 20 years, developing it and making it easier and quicker and more effective. And I promise you, give me 4 weeks. You'll be amazed at what you can change, because the real you's in here, believing in you, capable, but you just won't let yourself, because there's a bit of thinking that just went a bit astray, possibly years ago, that doesn't need to be used anymore. It just needs to be turned off. I really hope to speak to you soon. Please book in.